Welcome to our groundbreaking pop-up live webinar series. Hello, my name is Luke from Equilibrium Risk. So in this our first series, you can discover a wealth of knowledge about Martyn's Law, one episode at a time. Each episode is no more than 30 minutes and it unveils a brand new facet of Martyn's Law, delivering bite-sized, focused learning sessions like never before. But that's not all. As well as these dynamic webinars, we're also rolling out an exclusive audio event where you can dive into the conversation and take part in real-time discussions so that you can be part of this fantastic experience. Today, I am live streaming across our social media channels on LinkedIn and YouTube. I will be monitoring the comments. So if you have any questions, pop them in there and I will try and get around to answering them if I get a chance. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Today's topic is about impact. What impact will Martyn's Law have on manufacturers? Now, to understand this, we will look at Martyn's Law and how it will affect manufacturers. In particular, we'll go through the three-tiered levels of security measures that manufacturers may have to take. But before we get into that, let's have a quick recap about last week. Last week, we talked a bit about the background of Martyn's Law and why it affects manufacturers. If you want to have a full recap, have a look back through the program and have a look at the webinar, the recording from last week. But just to remind ourselves, Martyn's Law is a repercussion of the Manchester Arena bombings back in 2017. Martyn Het was one of the 22 victims, and his mother, Fagan Murray, has been campaigning ever since to improve security and preparedness around public events and public spaces. The Martyn's Law, real name is the Terrorism Protection of Premises Bill, is the knock-on effect of that, and it was due to come into legislation later this year. Now, why it affects manufacturers, let me just quickly share my screen. Why it affects manufacturers is there are two reasons. Firstly, if your premises has a maximum capacity of over 100. And secondly, if you have a business premises that is open to the public. And we covered that in a bit detail last week. But there are qualifying criteria that means your business would fall into the criteria. So if you host events, if you have temporary events, you're a place of interest, a museum or gallery, or you're an educational facility, then your business will fall into the remit of Martyn's Law. But like I said, if you want to go into that a bit more detail, have a look back at the old episode. So that leads us on to today's topic, impact. How will Martyn's Law affect UK manufacturers? And I want to cover three specific areas. Firstly, balance. Now, when they're putting this legislation in through government, they're trying to have a balanced approach. So quite rightly so. So the higher your risk or likelihood of a terrorist attack, the more strict or the more steps, security measures you'll have to take to stay compliant. Secondly, they're introducing three tiers for legislation, again based on your level of risk. And let me share my screen and we can go through that in a bit of detail. So the first tier is the voluntary tier, and that applies to any manufacturer that has a maximum capacity of less than 100 people. And the measures they are advised to take if they are volunteering is to understand the nature and impact of a terrorist attack. So take some form of risk assessment. The next is to ensure that staff are fully trained, aware, and are prepared in the event of an emergency. And lastly, just to understand that these things can change, the threat level can change, businesses can change, and just to stay dynamic, stay aware of what's coming up in the future so they can adapt their measures accordingly. The second measure, or the second tier, is the standard tier, and this applies to any manufacturer with a capacity of over 100 but less than 800. Okay, the measures there are required to take, again, is to understand the nature and impact of a terrorist threat on their business. So again, carry out some form of security assessment, terrorist assessment. Create a preparedness plan that incorporates the risk management activities, and we'll cover this preparedness plan in one of the future episodes. And again, ensure that staff are fully trained, aware, and prepared in the event of an emergency. And the last tier is the enhanced tier, and this applies to manufacturers with 100 and above. And the recommended measures here is, again, understand the nature and impact of a terrorist attack. Carry out a terrorism threat assessment and identify site-specific vulnerabilities. Develop a security plan and implement measures. And then lastly, you can't quite see that because my face is in the way, but conduct reasonable tests with the relevant security measures. See if I can... And the last thing I wanted to quickly touch on is every business is expected to nominate a specific person that is responsible for Martyn's Law, the implementation of the security measures, and to ensure that businesses remain compliant. So how do you think Martyn's Law will affect your business? Which tier applies to your business? Are your staff trained and prepared for a terrorist attack? Do you even know how to train your staff to be prepared? Do you know how to create a terrorism preparedness plan? And have you contemplated the impact of a terrorist attack on your business? If you want to join the conversation and ask questions, don't forget about our exclusive live audio event where you can dive in, you can join the conversation, and you can ask those questions. Our next audio event is happening on Thursday, the 18th of January at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and I will drop the link to that in the comments below. So just to summarize then, let's wind things up. Thank you for attending this event. I really do appreciate it. Remember, they're trying to introduce a balanced approach to this legislation. So the higher your risk is of a terrorist attack, the more security measures, the higher your tier level, the more steps you'll have to take to remain compliant. Remember, there are 3 tiers and levels of security measures that you as a manufacturer may have to take to comply with it. The voluntary tier, the standard tier, and the enhanced tier. And lastly, remember that as a business, you're expected to nominate one person to take overall responsibility of implementing these changes and ensure that you remain compliant. So our next pop-up live webinar event, again, will be live streamed across our social media channels next week on the 24th of January. The topic of this will be challenges. What are the unique challenges that manufacturers will face when complying with Martyn's Law? Again, I will pop the comments, or I'll pop the link in the comments below. And all that leaves for me is to say goodbye and thank you very much.